New Year's Eve is supposed to be a reset button, a clean slate, fresh hope. Instead, it became the night I watched the woman I loved, the woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, walk hand in hand with another man, laughing like nothing else in the world existed. We were at Bayline Towers, this upscale glass and steel conference center by the waterfront. Jenna's company had rented the whole top floor for their year-end celebration. It was extravagant in the way only tech money can afford. Designer lighting, custom cocktails, waiters in bow ties. There was even a jazz quartet playing smooth Coltrane while the sun dipped below the marina. She invited me as her guest, of course. Fiancé privileges. We'd been engaged for almost 6 months at that point. It still felt surreal. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only one in the room, even if she was surrounded by dozens. And that night, she looked stunning. Emerald green silk dress, minimal makeup, that quiet elegance that always made people pause when she walked into a room. We mingled. She introduced me to her coworkers. I recognized a few from stories she'd told in passing. The woman who always wore fake pearls. The guy who microwaved fish in the office break room. Jenna was animated, lighting up when she spoke, laughing with ease. I stayed by her side for most of the evening, smiling, nodding, sipping champagne. I'd been carrying the engagement ring in my jacket pocket all night. She already had one, technically, a modest diamond we picked together. But I had saved up for something special. A way to say, "This is forever." My plan was to show it to her just before midnight. Romantic, maybe cliché, but it felt right. And then, she disappeared. 1 second she was laughing with her project lead, the next she was gone. I figured maybe she stepped out to take a call, or maybe the noise had gotten too much. She hated crowds when she was stressed. I waited by the bar, then wandered toward the hallway. Nothing. I tried calling, no answer. I texted, "Everything okay?" No read receipt. Something about the silence started to press in on me. So I walked the perimeter of the hall, checked the restroom entrances, glanced through the tinted windows lining the corridor. That's when I saw her, through the side exit, near the loading bay where the staff took smoke breaks. She was walking down the stairs with a man, tall, maybe 6'4", long black coat, dark dress pants, expensive shoes. I only saw the side of his face. He was smiling at her. Not the kind of smile you give a coworker. And she wasn't just walking next to him. She was holding his hand. I stopped. I couldn't breathe for a second. They didn't see me, not at first. I stepped forward just slightly, enough to move into the yellowish halo of the outdoor light above the emergency exit. That's when Jenna noticed me. Her head turned. Our eyes met. And that's when I did the dumbest, most painful thing I've ever done. I pulled the small black box from my jacket pocket, opened it, held the ring in the center of my palm and just showed it to her, like an idiot. She froze, just for a second, long enough for me to see it. That flicker of guilt or maybe annoyance. She said something to him, too quiet for me to hear. And then, to my horror, she didn't run toward me. She didn't call out. She didn't even flinch. She turned back toward him, looked him dead in the eye, and kept walking. I stood there alone, holding a ring in my hand like a fool. The jazz band was still playing when I walked back into the banquet hall, my chest hollow and buzzing with this numb, electric sort of pain. I went straight to the bar and ordered bourbon. Neat. I needed something that didn't fizz. People were cheering as the countdown began. 10, 9. I watched them through the mirror behind the bar, watched as couples leaned into each other, glitter and hope swirling in the air like confetti. I didn't join in. I just stood there, watching, counting in my head with everyone else trying to feel something. Anything. At exactly 12:17 a.m., Jenna came back into the hall. She was smiling. I don't know how she pulled it off, but she walked up to me like nothing had happened. Her hair wasn't out of place. No visible guilt. Just cool composure like a politician after a scandal. "Hey," she said, slipping her hand into mine. "Sorry." I stepped outside to say goodbye to Caleb. He was heading out early. "Caleb?" I repeated, tasting the name like vinegar. "Colleague." "Yeah," she said, so casually it made me sick. From the Zurich team. You've probably heard me mention him. He's been flying in for the expansion project. I didn't answer. My mouth was dry. She leaned in slightly. Alex, you okay? I looked her dead in the eye. Why didn't you answer my call? I didn't see it, she said quickly. My phone died. You know how bad the battery's been. That was a lie. Her phone had been on the table between us an hour earlier. Full charge. Still, I said nothing. She smiled again, the kind of smile you give a child who's misbehaved. Babe, you've misunderstood everything again. Again. Like this was a pattern. Like I was the unreasonable one. The overthinker. The insecure fiancé. Maybe I was. I don't know. Maybe I wanted so badly to believe that this wasn't what it looked like. That I'd misread the moment. That the hand-holding meant nothing. That the shared laugh was innocent. That the turn away from me wasn't the clearest signal I'd ever seen in my life. So I nodded, said nothing, took another sip of my drink and stared at the bubbles in the champagne flute someone had left behind. Jenna slipped her arm around me like nothing was wrong. We even danced once before the night ended. A slow song, something vintage. Her head rested on my chest. Her perfume sweet and familiar. But something had broken. I didn't sleep that night. While she curled into our bed and scrolled on her phone like she always did, I lay there staring at the ceiling. The image of her hand in his playing on a loop behind my eyes. My fingers kept brushing against the ring in my pocket. I never even put it back in the box. Just let it rest there, cold against my palm. I told myself I needed more proof. That I shouldn't jump to conclusions. That people walk each other to their cars all the time. But I knew better. Some part of me had already started packing up. Emotionally, anyway. The suitcase labeled trust had been zipped closed. That night was the beginning of the end. I just didn't know how far it would unravel yet. After New Year's, things didn't fall apart all at once. It wasn't like she walked through the door and everything shattered. No, the unraveling was slower than that. Quiet, careful, like she didn't want me to hear it happening. Like she thought maybe if she whispered the betrayal softly enough, I wouldn't notice until I was already standing in the ruins. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. That's the trap, isn't it? You doubt your own instincts because the alternative is too painful to believe. You convince yourself that you're paranoid, overly sensitive, or worse, controlling. I wanted to be wrong so badly that I ignored every red flag as it marched right past me, waving with both hands. But the mosaic began forming whether I liked it or not. Piece by piece, moment by moment, quiet moments that didn't feel quiet, innocent things that didn't feel innocent anymore. It started with her eyes. She stopped looking at me the same way. You know when someone looks at you, really looks at you, like you matter, like you're home. That disappeared. Gradually. One day I realized I'd gone an entire dinner without her looking up from her phone. Just nods. Empty image. She used to catch my gaze across the room, smirk like we had some inside joke nobody else knew. Now her eyes just floated past me, like I was furniture. She was always texting. Always. Her phone never left her hand, even in the bathroom. I remember hearing it buzz while she was in the shower. I thought she'd let it ring. Instead, she poked her head out. Wet hair, soap still on her arm, just to snatch the phone off the sink. Said she needed to confirm a file transfer. Who texts about file transfers at 10:47 p.m.? I asked once, who's Caleb, really? She rolled her eyes. Said I was being ridiculous. He's from Zurich. He's married, Alex. God, do you really think I'd? She never finished that sentence. Just stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. I apologized. That was the pattern. She'd lie. I'd ask. She'd get angry. I'd apologize. I was slowly being trained to doubt myself. She started working late. A lot. Always last-minute emergencies. Always just one more meeting, one more report, one more brainstorm that had to happen in person after hours. I wanted to believe her. I really did. She was ambitious. She cared about her job. But ambition didn't explain the mismatched stories. Didn't explain how she could be at Nina's apartment, when Nina's Instagram story clearly showed her partying in Miami. I brought that up once, gently. I said, "Thought Nina was out of town?" Jenna froze for half a second, then smiled. She flew back early. Her sister had a medical thing. I asked, "Is she okay?" Jenna blinked. "Who?" "Her sister," I said. "Oh yeah, fine. Nothing serious." She didn't ask how I knew Nina had been out of town. I think she assumed I was checking, like a jealous teenager scrolling through tags and likes and timestamps. The irony is, I wasn't trying to catch her. I was trying to prove myself wrong. Every time I looked, I hoped the puzzle pieces wouldn't fit. But they did. Every time. Perfectly. She used to wear my hoodie around the house. The gray one with the tear on the sleeve. Said it smelled like me. Now she wore only clean, crisp things. Matching sets. Full makeup even on Sundays. She started using a new perfume. Stronger. Muskier. Not her usual floral stuff. Said her old bottle ran out. But I found it later in the bathroom cabinet, nearly full. Even her silences changed. They used to feel comfortable. The kind of silence you share with someone you know down to the bone. Now they were sharp. Tense. She'd sigh when I tried to talk. Say things like, "Not this again." Like asking if she was okay was some kind of interrogation. She accused me of hovering. Said I was on her back all the time. That I never let her breathe. But I wasn't hovering. I was drowning. She was the one pulling away. I was just reaching out, trying to grab hold before I slipped under. We fought more. Stupid things. Dishes. Groceries. Who left the porch light on. But under every argument was something else. Something neither of us wanted to name. She'd start yelling, then go quiet, then grab her keys and leave. No explanation. Just, "I need space." One night, after a particularly ugly fight over who forgot to pay the water bill. It was me, I admit it. She left without saying where she was going. Came back around 2 in the morning. I was half asleep on the couch when she walked in, heels in her hand, mascara smudged. She looked like she'd been crying, but there was something else. A softness I hadn't seen in months. A kind of glow. "Where were you?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. Just said, "I needed air." Then she walked upstairs and shut the door. I sat there for hours, staring at nothing. The shadows in the living room felt heavier than usual. And I started thinking about all the things I didn't want to think about. The way her voice changed when she answered certain calls. The way she always faced the wall when texting. How she kept her phone on silent, how her passwords had changed, how she got irritated when I asked simple questions, like whether she wanted pasta for dinner. One afternoon, I found a receipt crumpled at the bottom of the laundry hamper. A rooftop bar downtown, the kind with a dress code and craft cocktails. The date on it matched the night she said she was at a late client dinner. For work. The bill was for 2. And the signature wasn't hers, not her handwriting anyway. I don't even think she meant to leave it in her jeans. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I folded the receipt and put it in the back of my wallet. Later that same week, I caught her humming in the kitchen. Not unusual, except it was a song I'd never heard her play before. When I asked about it, she paused, almost startled. "Oh," she said. "Just something from a playlist Caleb sent me." She didn't even realize she'd said his name. That was the moment something in me turned. I smiled, said nothing, but in my head, something clicked into place. I started watching more closely, writing things down, taking mental notes, time-stamping her absences. I didn't yell, didn't accuse, didn't beg. I just watched, because I wasn't sure who Jenna was anymore. I kept hoping I'd wake up and it would all make sense, that there'd be some grand misunderstanding and everything would snap back into place. But every day I saw her, I realized I didn't recognize her anymore. Or maybe I was finally seeing her for who she really was. The moment came quietly, like most truths do. I wasn't searching anymore, not actively. I'd grown tired of looking for confirmation in glances and silences. But then the truth offered itself up. Uninvited, raw, undeniable. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had taken the day off work. Jenna had a conference, some big event she said she couldn't skip. She kissed my cheek that morning like everything was normal. She even laughed at something I said about the coffee tasting like cardboard. That laugh, it used to be real. That day it felt like a sound she'd practiced in the mirror. Around noon, I turned on the TV. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just wanted noise in the background. But our smart TV had this feature. A sync that pulls up the last photos from a connected phone cloud. It was linked to Jenna's phone. She must have forgotten to disable it. One by one, the images slid across the screen. At first, it was normal stuff, **TS of graphs, office group photos, a blurry picture of a salad. And then came them. The man from New Year's Eve. Caleb. They were at a bar, clearly not dressed for a work meeting. Jenna was in a black off-the-shoulder top I'd never seen before, and he was leaning into her, smiling like she was his. In one photo, she was sitting on his lap, her arm around his shoulder. His hand rested low on her back, low enough that I flinched. Her face was turned toward his, eyes half-lidded, a smile that didn't belong to me. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I watched as the slideshow continued, photo after photo like chapters in a book I was never meant to read. Her hand brushing his chest, them clinking glasses, her looking at him like he was gravity. That was when I knew. Not suspected, not assumed. Knew. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. Settles into your bones, cold and permanent. That's what this was. No shouting. No throwing things. Just stillness. Like the moment after a car crash when everything goes silent. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I didn't rage. I planned. First, I took photos of the TV screen. All of them. Every image. I made backups, uploaded them to the cloud, to a hard drive, to an email I hadn't touched in years. Then I opened my bank app and started transferring money into an account she didn't know existed. One I'd opened months ago after our first fight about boundaries. At the time, it felt dramatic. Now, it felt necessary. I changed passwords, email, banking, even the garage door app. I double-checked the legal paperwork I'd quietly prepared months ago. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being ready. The ring I'd tried to give her on New Year's? I took it to the safe deposit box downtown. That box also held a copy of our property deed, the one with a clause she never really read. The one that said, in the case of infidelity, full ownership passed to the uninvolved party. She'd signed it, laughing, calling it a weird prenup. I'd shrugged. She never read the fine print. I spent the next few hours going over everything. Every document, every file, every plan I'd made in the quiet moments while pretending not to notice her growing absence. I wasn't preparing for revenge. I was preparing for freedom, because now I had proof, and soon I'd have peace. Once you see the truth, it changes how you see everything else. After those photos, I stopped wondering and started observing. I didn't confront Jenna. I didn't ask questions. I didn't accuse her or try to force a confession. Why would I? She had already told me everything without saying a word. She thought I was still in the dark. That's what made it easy. I began parking 2 blocks from the house when I got home from work. Just sat there some nights, engine off, watching the street. Watching for her. Sometimes I'd see the black SUV drop her off around midnight. Same car, same driver, always slow, always discreet. I stayed low in my seat, not breathing. Sometimes I saw her lean in before stepping out. Once, I saw her kiss someone goodbye. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It was the kind that lands slow and lingers. She came through the front door with the same face every time. Tired, slightly annoyed, acting like I was the one creating problems. Late meeting, she'd say, brushing past me without looking up. Or, Kara needed someone to talk to. I never asked follow-ups. I just nodded, wrote the time down, marked the address. If she noticed how quiet I'd become, she didn't say. Maybe she liked it. Maybe she assumed I was finally giving up. I wasn't. I started logging everything. Not obsessively, not like a jealous boyfriend flipping through phone records. No, methodically, like a surgeon prepping for a clean incision. Dates, times, license plate numbers. I took photos from the window, blurry night *TS, but enough to identify the vehicle. Enough to trace it back if I needed to. She was clever in how she hid it. That's what got to me, how practiced she was. Her lies weren't wild or dramatic. They were careful, measured, just believable enough. She never said too much, just the right amount to plug the silence. She wasn't lying because she was afraid of getting caught. She was lying because she believed I wouldn't leave. That's the part that stung. She had stopped being careful with her phone. Maybe because she didn't think I was looking anymore. Once, she left her screen unlocked for a moment while she was in the bathroom. A text from Caleb popped up. Last night was magic. Same time tomorrow? My heart didn't race. I just took a photo of the screen and put the phone back down. I wasn't jealous anymore. I was documenting. Sometimes, while she was asleep, I'd look at her and wonder who she was dreaming about. If she missed him when she was with me. If he texted her good night. If she saved his messages like keepsakes the way she used to save mine. The strangest part was how normal everything seemed on the surface. She still asked what I wanted for dinner. Still folded my laundry. Still kissed my cheek in the morning. But it was all muscle memory. Like she was playing house with someone she'd already emotionally moved out on. One Saturday, she said she was going shopping. I watched her leave from the upstairs window. She got into the SUV again. Not a rideshare. I know the difference. This wasn't someone picking up a passenger. This was someone picking up someone they knew. That time I followed. Not close. Just enough to keep sight of them. They drove out of the city, toward the quieter suburbs. Eventually, they pulled into the driveway of a modern house with a black gate and floor-to-ceiling windows. I didn't get out, just parked across the street and waited. They stayed inside for 3 hours. When she came out, she was smiling. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. The next morning, I opened a new spreadsheet. Labeled it Departure Plan. I made a list, utilities to reroute, bills to separate, lawyers to call. It wasn't revenge I was after. It was control. I'd already lost the relationship. I wasn't about to lose my dignity too. She had no idea. She thought I was still hopeful, still clinging. Still willing to play the part of the devoted fiancé while she lived a double life. But I had stopped playing. The hardest part was pretending not to care. Nodding when she lied. Smiling when she made up stories. Sitting through dinner knowing she had been in someone else's bed hours earlier. There's a kind of loneliness that's worse than being alone. It's being invisible to the person who once knew you best. And that's what I had become. Invisible. When everything was in place, I waited for the perfect moment. When Jenna left for a business trip. That same day, I changed the locks. In the entryway, I left an envelope. Legal documents, bank statements, property records, all signed and final. No explanation, no confrontation, just facts. I didn't block her, didn't scream, I vanished. When she returned, her key no longer worked. She called. I didn't answer. Her parents texted, saying I was overreacting. I didn't reply. I wasn't running from the pain. I had walked through it. And now I was closing the door behind me. She made her choices. I made mine. Quiet. Clean. Final. A week later, Jenna received a photo. I was by the lake with my nephew, smiling, holding a fishing rod. Underneath, true trust isn't returned. It's rebuilt. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I stepped off the stage where she'd been performing for months. She had believed I'd always be in the audience, waiting for her to come clean. But I had already left. Emotionally, legally, and completely. She thought she had time. She thought she had control. But I was never hers to betray without consequence. I didn't slam the door. I simply locked it behind me and walked away for good.